Hello and welcome to 2023 Tell Your Story. This specific episode today is actually a series within a series. We are welcoming back author Nicole Jackson. Today she is coming in to talk about her son Ben and some of the things that they share in common with a cartoon that I made on YouTube. If you guys are not familiar with the cartoon is called My Blended Family. It focuses on kids that are all different. They come in different colors, different sizes, different shapes. Some may have disorders, some may have special needs, but whatever the case may be, they're all kids. They all deserve the representation. And today, Nicole Jackson, we want to welcome her and we want to welcome Ben, her son Ben, to the platform. Thank you guys so much for sharing and spending this Saturday with me to have a conversation that is based on a cartoon and a series within a series. And Nicole, welcome back to the platform because
Thank you. Good to be here. And of course, we would be here to support. So absolutely.
So let's start with introducing you both to our viewers. Nicole, you can go first. In case you didn't catch her season 1. She is an author, and then her son Ben. So let me let you guys get started on introducing yourself.
Of course, yes. So again, grateful to be here to share with you and your audience. And yes, I am an author, co-author of the book Speak Incest Out Loud, where I share my journey through not only surviving incest, but healing beyond the actual injury, assault, and trauma. And the whole purpose is to allow others who may have experienced the same or similar types of abuse see a representation of living beyond the trauma, living in peace and joy, and not allowing that trauma to guide every decision in your life. It's a lot of work. And it's an ongoing process. It's not an end, like I'm healed, I'm done, but it's always, self-reflecting, learning and growing, just so you can live a life of peace and joy. And this is my wonderful son, Benjamin, and he's 25, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm 25. I'm working on my bachelor's degree in social work, and my goal is to just be advocate for people that can't speak for themselves. And so many people have helped me, was giving me so many gifts and so much wisdom and helped me out in everyday life. Even if it was willing me to the classroom, fixing a meal, and just allowing me to be in their presence, just allowing them to be in my space. That in itself is just a tremendous gift for my entire life.
Consuela.
That's absolutely wonderful. And Ben, and so Ben, let me ask you. So I know that we had discussed off camera the cartoon and things like that. How do you feel about having that type of representation? If you were younger, would be able to see that type of animation and representation online? How would that have changed the trajectory of or anything, had it been any type of help for you?
I think that would have been a great stepping stool for me, because a lot of times when I was younger, I didn't really notice this until I was going through middle school, that I wasn't like everybody else, because I was always raised that you can do whatever you want, you're no different. But when you get to about 12, 13, you get to that age and you start to notice certain things. Like when people go to the bathroom, you're not like everybody else. You can't go outside. You're not going outside playing basketball with the fellas. You can't just because somebody calls you to go somewhere. You just can't jump in a car with somebody else. So those little idiosyncrasies get to you, even though when you get older, as you grow up, you find your ways through every situation. as I do all the time now. But when you're younger, you don't want to ask your friend, oh, could you put your walker in your mom's car for me? Could you help me get into your house if it was need to be? Just little stuff like that. But
And Nicole, how hard was that for you on the journey with Ben?
It's kind of comical, but first I will say that had there been cartoons available with children with disabilities, it would have been a wonderful representation to allow him to be able to look at something on television and see someone, they may not have cerebral palsy, but someone who's different, dealing with a disability or different abilities, and have an example of how they work through different scenarios. Because really we were doing this from scratch and figuring it out along the way. And it's so funny because, I was divorced very early on, during my pregnancy. And so when I moved out here to California, I started dating, and we would go to the park or to the lake. And years after, my boyfriend at the time and I knew each other for some time, he says, man, Nicole, when you used to get out the car, it was like the bionic woman. And you'd just be talking and clicking and clacking and putting everything together. And he said it was amazing to see how you just did it automatically. And I think there were so many things I did on autopilot because I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have anyone to show how they did it as, a parent of a child with special needs. So it was hard, but I didn't have time in the midst of it to recognize how hard it was. I can now look back and say, oh my goodness, praise God that God loves me because he was able to help me get through that when I had no blueprint on how to do it.
Yeah, parenting is hard, and then you add the piece of having a child that has a disability or a special need. And I say super abilities because I feel like I don't care, you may be able to see something on the outside, but we are all dealing with something, whether it's on the outside or the inside. So I always say super abilities because there's people that can have, all the norm and still don't have the drive or the encouragement and things that are instilled in kids that are like Ben. To just encourage them to never give up, to keep fighting, to stay positive, to have a smile on his face. And every time I see Ben, he has a smile on his face, and he's just a positive, amazing young man. And he gets credit for that, but you also get credit as a mom too, because it was you and Ben. And I know that, he did have a stepdad as well. So Ben, talk a little bit about your stepfather.
Well, I will say this: just having a male figure in my life, as my stepdad was just a beautiful thing. Just because I never had that, because up until that point it was just me and mom. So at first I was kind of like, I felt like my family was drifting away from me because up until I was 9 years old, it was me and mom. So I just thought, why is this happening to my family? And then I got this random dude telling me what to do. Like a guy has never, up until that point, a guy had never told me what to do. It was always females. So that in itself was a change. Just having a man guiding me what to do. But back then I was very, very upset. Like he would teach me how to get in the truck. There's actually a funny story. I was at school one day and the aides were the aides was always helping me get out to the car every day after school. So but then one morning my stepdad noticed me getting my walker because I was chilling on my walker just hanging out with friends, and he saw that. And then but one day he just opened the door and didn't carry me inside. He just told me to climb in. Like, what world is this? The Twilight Zone? And I'm like, and then Abe was like, no, like help me out. And he went out to help me. And I did, and I got, and then I got to it. But I can look back now and say all those 3 years of my life, how beautiful they were to me, how 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 I needed those years that someone other than my mom to push me, because my mom has always, don't get me wrong, my mom has always pushed me my entire life, but just through someone else's eyes, she needed that. She needed that. She needed someone else, especially a male, to form me in those years.
Yeah.
Men,
I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say men are good for some things, and young boys never want. It doesn't matter. They don't want anybody to date their mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when Benjamin, he didn't speak until he was 4. But
Okay.
tell at around 3, he was able to understand me. So I talked to him all the time as though he could understand. And somewhere between 4-ish and 6-ish. First of all, you have to understand, he was like a novelty when he went to school because he had the walker. And he would always have an entourage. We had parents, children, and teachers who would meet us in the parking lot of the car and follow us into the building all the way to his classroom. I mean, I believe they thought it was sweet, but it almost felt like, look at the different thing in the cage in the zoo, and also it didn't serve him well because he thought he was a kid with an entourage. So I was fighting against that in the home. Everything was special for Benjamin, and then special needs, and then special ed, special. And I remember at one point, he was, whining and being spoiled as kids are. And imagine a kid who's had, in the average home, if they had nannies and people doing everything for them. And I had to ask him one day, I said, do you want to grow up and go to college and have a career and perhaps a family? Or do you want mom just to take care of you and you sit around all day and I take care of you the rest of your life? And he said, no, I want to go to college. He talked all the stuff that he wanted to do. I said, then get off your butt and do what I tell you to do. Special needs, forget it. You're special to nobody but mama. Get over it. And from that point on, I treated him as though there was no disability. And there was a point where we had a full-time nanny because I traveled for work and I needed her to be on call for me. Like if the school needed her, needed me, they would call her because I could be up in the mountains out of cell phone range. And she would feel you make him put his toys away? Yes, I make him put his toys away. She would do it for him and I had to make her stop. But he can't stand. So he's got 2 good knees and 2 good hands. He can push on his knees and put his toys away. So I've always pushed him to reach his max potential in whatever the skill was. And then we'll adapt once we see what's the max he can do, rather than handicapping him by doing everything for him. And so that has served us well. And then, my ex coming along and, providing another set of eyes in a way that even I couldn't see. Here I thought I was, pushing him to the max. And he says, Nicole, I've watched you for years. It's the same person who talked about me being the bionic woman and taking all this stuff out. He said, you've been lifting him in and out of the car and lifting. He said, I saw Benny push up on his walker and I saw his muscles pop out. He says, oh no. He says, we are never lifting him again. And so he did. He had one of those big 2,500 trucks. And he said, Benny, get up in the truck. And I'm in the house like quivering, like, oh, you're my baby. But I didn't. I knew he saw something that I did not. And Ben kept looking back at the house with the tears. And I'm like hiding in the window. I didn't want him to see me. And within like a week or 2, they're going up. Benny go get in the truck. He pulls himself up in the truck and throws his backpack and they're flying down the road. So, that other set of eyes for me was a gift to let me see that there's still more that he can do that I'm, not pushing him to do. And of course, like Ben said, having just that male figure other than mama telling him all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's important. I find with boys, to have to have,
This-
to have the reassurance for sure, because
Mhm,
it's definitely needed.
mhm, mhm.
But that's an amazing thing too. And I'll be honest with you, Ben, like I know we've talked off camera. I think I told you how my son, he's 15, he has ADHD. And the counselor, when I say, well, he's doing this, he'll say, oh, that's ADHD. And I'm like, well, what about that's ADHD? Oh, well, what about that's ADHD? I'm like, everything is I mean, like everything
Right.
he does, like, you know what I mean? Like he can't, do anything. So even though you may not be able to see that there is a disorder, there is, and
Mhm,
it is serious. Because we're trying to retain information has been an issue
mhm,
all throughout school. And as a mother, we see things before everybody else because
mhm.
we've carried the child and we are, we have the instincts. So my question to you would be like, what was there something that they told you during pregnancy, or was it something that you started to notice after Ben was born?
Well, Benjamin was premature. I went into labor at 28 weeks.
Okay.
And so, the neonatologist comes in and gives you the whole gamut of everything that could while you're in labor with your premature child, he comes in and tells you the worst case scenario. It's like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
And my mom was deceased when Ben was born. And my sisters lived out of state. I had girlfriends who were parents and we were all nurses, but just not that close person in town with me. I was living in Massachusetts, away from the family, the place where I grew up in Ohio. And so when he finally did come home from the hospital, it's funny because there's a thing called sensory stim um, that you see in a lot of neurological disorders. And
Mhm.
so with Benjamin, it shows up as a moan, a hum, like that. And
Okay.
no, even when he was a baby, I said, you know how babies can curl into your neck when they're so tiny? And I said, he purrs like a kitty cat. That was part of the sensory stem starting.
Oh, okay.
And I remember one of my friends who was a nurse, she used to always ask me, why does he hyperextend? And now today, I have to believe she recognized there was something wrong, but how do you tell a new mom that something's not right? Do you know what? That's all I can guess. I can't get in touch with her today. But she kept saying, why does he hyperextend when he swallows? And so
Hmm.
that's a part of that cerebral palsy, the disorder. And then one big thing, my grandmother, she came to live with me for a few months when we moved here in 98. So Benjamin was like 2, between, wow. I'm talking about when I was during the incident, during the scenario. He was around between 18 months and 2 years old. And now I look back, I was so ridiculously naive, but he still wasn't crawling yet. And so I would put him on the blanket and say, come on, try to coax him to me. And he would try and just cry. And I kept coaxing him and coaxing him. Again, my grandmother, who at that point was 90 when she visited me, and believe it or not, she used to get down on the floor on the blanket and play with him too. But after I had this session where I kept trying to coax him to come to me, when I finally picked him up and was holding him, she grabbed my arm very firmly. She said, don't ever do that to him again. She too knew there was something wrong, but no one's telling me.
Mm.
So, yeah. And so it was when he was older, I want to say in somewhere around first, second grade, maybe, or even younger. I noticed one of his eyes wandering. And his pediatrician sent me to a pediatric neurologist, also was a vision specialist. I can't think of her professional title. And she was the first one after the session. She said, has anyone ever said the words cerebral palsy to you? I said, no, what is that? And so she explained to me in brief, what it was. She said, I'm not making a diagnosis. It's not my place to do that. But I do want you to hear that word so that if you do hear it down the line, it's not a shock to you. She said, that's my concern. That's what I'm going to tell your pediatrician, but I can't make a diagnosis, but just get used to hearing that word. What a gift that was.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went back to the pediatrician, he said, yes, now I'm going to send you to a neurologist. And come to find out, our pediatrician, his son, he had 2 sons and one had passed away. He had cerebral palsy, but unlike Benjamin, he had it so severely that, that hyperextension that the young lady, my nurse friend saw when he was a baby, that's what he had to do in order to swallow and manage his secretions. But my pediatrician's son passed away of pneumonia because he couldn't cough and clear his secretions.
Oh, okay.
So even that tonicity and extension was a gift because he could have been in a position where he couldn't hyperextend to manage those secretions and pass away like my pediatrician's son, And so that's how we found out. That's what started the journey, and what a journey it has been.
And I couldn't imagine the journey that you've been on, but the outcome couldn't be more special, because we have Ben, and he is an amazing young man. So Ben, what is
Most of the time. Most of the time, yes.
So Ben, what is the biggest thing that you could tell like a child that may have like spina bifida, or that someone that may be limited as far as like being in the wheelchair, things like that? I know you went through a lot of different changes growing up. How can you be a vessel for younger kids?
Just enjoy the journey. It's all part of the journey. Just all the good, bad, and indifferent. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's all part of the journey. Just embrace it. I know it's hard to hear this right now, but just embrace the journey. Embrace the happiness, the tears, the sometimes embarrassment. Yeah, just being honest. Just embrace it. And once I know it sounds cliche and corny, but when you get out the other side and you come back in retrospect, you will come and you will shine brighter than you have shined ever in your life. Because I've gone through all of those things, and because is it true that I wasn't supposed to even make it home from the hospital?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, every phase was a phase, a traumatic phase. Yeah.
But just embrace it. Don't ever tell somebody you can't. Don't ever let somebody, because a lot of people try to tell me. I remember in fourth grade, when we went fourth grade, a teacher, because up to this point I'd always been in normal classes. I've always done classes. She wanted to take me to special ed because she didn't want to put in extra help. That extra help, because I can think of a couple of reasons, but it wouldn't be appropriate for me to say why. But yeah, but politically, but just don't let anybody tell you can't, because you hold your destiny, not nobody else. No one else will hold your destiny.
And I won't presume to speak for you, but I'm going to share some examples, but correct me if I'm misstating, okay? But when he did ask about, was it true I wasn't supposed to make it home from the hospital? His weight for a 28-weeker was significant. I mean, he was 4 pounds, I think, and 11 ounces. I was proud because I had the biggest baby in NICU. I'm like, yeah, I've got the largest baby in NICU. But all the different phases just to get off of the vent, to get off of the CPAP, to be able to tolerate a car seat ride where they jiggle you and see if you can tolerate a ride. We lived way out in Amherst, Massachusetts, and he was delivered in Springfield. So that's like a 40-minute drive. So they had to make sure he could tolerate that and not have any desaturations in his oxygen. So all of that. But, you know, there was once upon a time, we had great care at Shriners Hospital, but we had one physician who came in the room. You would have think I was trying to make my son into some totally different other type of mammal, because he looks at me like, why are you working so hard on trying to get him to walk or trying to get him to just put him in a chair and let him be okay? And I was so startled and broken by that, you know. But again, you know, praise God for God, because I didn't pay any attention to it. I was hurt, but we just kept on doing what we needed to do, you know. And yes, he had the teacher who really just wanted to get him out of the classroom into a special ed classroom. And thank goodness for his stubbornness. He kept saying, no, I want to stay with my friends. And so I'm like, well, how come he can't stay with his friends? Rather than sending him out, can't you bring somebody in, you know? And he carried that attitude all the way through to high school, you know, with adaptive PE. The first year he had it, they wanted to take him out and put him in a group with kids who had special needs, and they had group adaptive PE. He said, it ain't gonna happen. You got to figure out your schedule, how to come into my classes, PE, and help me do what they're doing a different way. And then it got to where he was showing the PE teacher how he could adapt it, you know, whether it was lifting weights or push-ups or what have you.
Or be doing a hand, instead of doing dance, I did like a hand stand, like something with my hand. Because high school, they make you do those dances where so I did. Instead, he does like better, faster, younger, and I did 1, 2, 3.
So everything was just in his own way in the group with his friends. He was not going to be pulled out. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, we used to go out in the community and everybody wanted to fumble and help him. And I said, like, leave him be. He can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the flip side of that, I had a close friend tell me, she says, Nick, everyone who wants to help Benjamin, they aren't feeling sorry for him. They aren't trying to prevent him from being independent. It's their public service to support someone with special needs. It's okay for you to back off and let somebody help him once in a while, you know. But all of it was just pushing to meet the max, pushing to not do the most, like young people say, you're doing the most, but do the most and the max he was able to do. And then we make an adjustment when we find out what that max is. Yeah.
Well, there's a piece that I appreciate the conversation that you and I have had offline, where you were discussing IEP with me, and how when it got to a specific point, you let Benjamin sit in to say what he needed for him and what was working for him. And that was an amazing piece of advice for me. And these are the reasons why it's good to have these conversations, because I don't feel like there's enough information out there. They just give you a diagnosis sometimes, and then they tell you, here you go, figure it out on your own.
His IEP was very traumatic.
Yeah. And sometimes there could be some support, and sometimes even like you said with your friend, it was probably two-way conversations, because you're trying to get him to be as independent as possible, and she's trying to say, hey, we're not trying to, you know, rub you the wrong way. We just want to help in which way we can. And that's why these conversations and these things need to happen, so that there can be an understanding, not just with parents, but with our kids too, so that other kids can say, okay, I live with my aunt because my parents are gone, and I see them with both of their parents, or, you know, someone in Ben's situation or Preston's situation. We need to have these conversations as parents, which is why I created the cartoon, because that dialogue needs to be had, not to be specific about each disorder or disability, because there's no way that we could ever cover all
No,
of them.
no.
But what we can do is bring a conversation to the parents to open the door to say these things can happen. It can happen during pregnancy. It can happen during childhood, or it can happen later on during life. You just really don't know, because there's a lot of people that have misdiagnosis, and they don't get diagnosed until later on in life about
Yes,
certain, disorders and things like that. And so
yeah.
that's why I wanted to have you guys on and I appreciate you guys so much for volunteering to be a vessel for those that need it, for sure.
I
And
just
so, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just wrote a note on 2 items I'd like to address before we do wrap up.
Okay.
The IEP, several things came to mind. The very first one, when he was in preschool to prepare him for kindergarten, is when everybody who's a discipline has a report for that IEP. That very initial meeting, the multiple disciplines in the room around the table talking to themselves and passing papers and then sticking them in front of me to sign. And that's the first traumatic, where I had to like raise the hair on the back of my neck and say, well, wait a minute, because I read all the information and I was supposed to have an opportunity to receive this information 2 weeks in advance so that I too could review it and have some input in this meeting. So I said, this here, I'll collect your documents, but I'm signing nothing, and we need to schedule another meeting. And so I think it's real important that parents learn to advocate for themselves and for their child in those IEPs. They are not the experts of your home and your child. They're only the expert in their professional field, and this is a collaborative effort. It's not you coming in to tell me what you're going to do for us, And then
And
the next,
even
go ahead.
And even really quick to piggyback off of that, just really fast, is even if there's 2 children in a classroom that has cerebral palsy, that does not mean that both of those children are the same. And sometimes they don't even have the necessary training that they do need to be even a special needs teacher. So I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just really wanted to say, every child, I don't care what difference they may have or what people, say is normal. Every child is different.
Yes.
Every child is different.
Yes. There's no cookie cutter.
Not,
And another item is that when they read off the demographics about the child, about the things that impact their education, his first meeting from going from kindergarten to first grade, the psychologist says, this is Benjamin Johnson. He's a 5-year-old boy who comes from a single household of an African-American woman, blah, blah, blah. I said, pump your brakes, pump your brakes. We're supposed to be discussing barriers to his education, and none of what you just said creates a barrier to his education. And so I have my red pen and I'm putting lines through items that I don't agree with, so that when you give me your next copy of your report that I'm going to sign, those pieces won't be in it. She didn't like it. The kindergarten teacher couldn't wait for us to leave because she says, I can't talk out against anything in the meeting, but everything you said is exactly what I was thinking. So again, you just have to be that advocate. And then the other point I wanted to make before we sign off is it's so important for parents, caregivers, providers, grandparents, whomever it is, who is raising a child with special needs, to take care of yourself. I have always made a point of making sure I take vacations, have girlfriend time, have dinner time, go for massages, whatever it is, on the regular. I'm not talking about once or twice a year. I have always vacationed at least once a year, if not several times a year, without Benjamin. And everyone always asks, is Benjamin coming? No, I do this so I can recover and be great for him when I am home. Like, this is what I need to do so I can be the best for him. So important. There's no super mom. There's not, I got it. No, I don't have it and I need it. So, so I'm taking my time.
No.
Yes.
And I think the last time we had a conversation, remember how we were like, there's this whole thing about single moms, especially Black single moms. I just want to reiterate that myself or Nicole, when we were younger, and they said, you know, they go around, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? We did not raise our hands to say that we wanted to be single parents. Okay. This is the hardest job.
Is.
But it is a very, very, very rewarding. But if you can, you know, be married, things happen. Of course, things happen.
Yeah.
But I would suggest anybody, not only before you get married and have kids, heal your childhood trauma first, and
Yes.
then get
Yes.
married,
Yeah.
and then decide to have kids, because you really, there's a bunch of hereditary things that could be going on with your child that you don't get to say so over.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we do the work out of love, of course, for our kids, and because they're special. And so, and I'm not saying special needs. I'm saying they're special, period, because they're our babies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so, Ben, the last thing I wanted to know, when we talked the last time, I promised that I'm going to have a character of Ben in the cartoon, for you, and then you and I will meet and we'll go over some characteristics of the cartoon character that you would like to have and things like that. So we will not tell them what episode. We'll let it be a surprise, but it'll probably be towards more the end of the year, just because it's kind of been slow, just because it's a writer's block and a lot of stuff trying to get it picked up. But it's not stopping the show, so we're moving
That's
on.
wonderful.
So,
Amazing, huh?
Beautiful thing. Thank you so much.
and in closing, is there anything else that you would like to say? A piece of advice, some encouraging words to the young kids out there? Anything else that you would like to say besides that you have an amazing mom?
Just everything is everything. God is the foundation of everything. Everything is everything.
Yep, and we're all exactly where and who we are supposed to be. Yep, everything in God's time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank
You
you.
have raised a very, very handsome, intelligent, strong young man. And Ben, I'm super proud of you.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate you, both of us. We appreciate you.
You're so welcome. Again, thanks for coming on, you guys. And I will be following up and talking to you soon. I look forward to our episode. Make sure you